As quickly as it comes is as quickly as it goes. I'm gonna be honest, guys, I have tried to record, or at least start recording this video a few times now, and I'm just trying to figure out exactly what to say about this whole thing. Whether I want to dive into every single piece of information or whether or not. I'm kind of going with the middle ground at this point. As you see from the title, you know it's not necessarily a lie. Well, it's actually just not a lie at all. We are putting a stop to the tournament, and there are a multitude of reasons why. But the first thing I want to say is I apologize for getting anyone excited about this idea. And it is absolutely kind of in agreement with Karabast. I have reached out to the developers over there beforehand, and then I've also reached out to them literally just before recording this video to make sure that we're all on the same page. And it sounds like a little bit of a miscommunication has caused a lot of, well, potential trouble. So I want to just put everyone, or at least as much as I can, alleviate as much stress or anything like that that could be caused from this as possible. And so today we're going to be going through a lot of the reasons why. What's going on? Why did you say you were doing it and now we're not? Is there something going on? And yes, there is. There's really one main reason, but there's also a few other things that I want to talk about, including, well, the massive community support that you all are showing, whether it's for this channel, whether it's for the community of Star Wars Unlimited. I just want to say a big thank you, and we'll showcase a bunch of comments that I was receiving. Oh my gosh, guys, we already got like 300 signups for this. I wouldn't be surprised if we were able to get like 1,000 people on board, just because of how like open the kind of requirements for something like this were, right? Just, hey, if you got time, come sit down and play. Like, that's kind of what the whole goal was. The whole goal was to have a big community event. In the process of doing so, I don't want to get anyone in trouble, even though I would still absolutely love to do something like this. Whether it is webcam, whether it is, just showing up on Tabletop Simulator or whatever it is, I would love to have a bunch of people together playing some games and commentating the games, whether it's tournament style or not. But right now, it seems like it's a good idea. And again, the developers and I had kind of talked about this a lot, specifically today. It's a good idea to put the brakes on it for now. And I want to dive into more of that. So if you're interested in hearing the whole video, besides just the TLDR here at the beginning, hey, we're not doing it, hey, it's not a good idea, etc., go ahead and continue to watch the video. But I want to just start off with a few of the comments. Some positive, or a lot positive, but then there's a vocal minority here that absolutely is valid. And I want to address that first. Now we're going to start with the negative, or at least some of the reasons as to why we might not be doing this, versus starting with a positive, because we got to end on a positive note with our comments before we dive into more reasonings. But this was kind of the main critique. People were worried about Karabast getting shut down, similar to how the shutdown of Pixelborn had happened. And I made a video on Pixelborn about 10 months ago. You all kind of watched it if you've been around for that long. And I talked about kind of potentially what could be happening to Karabast in the future. Now, after doing more research on Pixelborn, it's a lot different. It's a lot different. And if you go ahead and do some research of your own on Pixelborn, the magnitude of Pixelborn versus Karabast is, and it's a league of its own. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I don't really want to focus on that necessarily, because it's more about the community at large versus that issue in general. And if people are worried or concerned, or the people that are not hosting, because they're not hosting, but the people that are involved by nature of just having a platform are stressed out, then we want to respect their wishes as much as we possibly can. And that's always how I've been. Of course, there is a really key factor to this, which is I thought that we were on the same page going into this, which is kind of why I even suggested the idea in the first place. Come to find out that it was a little bit of a miscommunication, maybe a misunderstanding on my part, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. And again, I'm just here to say how it is, that's just how it is. But I want to take this type of feedback absolutely into consideration, right? We don't want to put unnecessary stress on one of the best platforms ever, really, in terms of online trading card game. Completely free, completely able to go ahead and access all your cards and regularly updated, as well as run by some very, very awesome people. Very awesome people. So this idea that we might get some unwanted flack towards a beloved fan site, I don't want that to happen. So even if it's a small minority of people that are mentioning this and the vast majority of you want to participate, I think this is 100% valid feedback. And I want to take that into consideration, because not only are, a lot of the more competitive players considering this, because these are the people that were involved with Pixelborn and things in the past, oftentimes, or people that have been a long time in the TCG space, kind of know some of these things, how they go down when you get to levels of what Pixelborn was, which we're not even close, by the way, but to the level that Pixelborn was, we really start to see kind of the impact that it may have. Now, as I mentioned, this isn't just all negative in terms of what people had to say. There was a lot of positive feedback. A ton of people, as I said, almost 300 already in just over 24 hours of signups, were ready to join in and play with the community. So I just want to say a big apology to any of you that were interested in joining. I was also very excited about this. I thought that we had kind of set up an initial just agreement, not even necessarily, again, this is not supposed to be like I'm signing up a tournament and I'm hosting it on, Melee, and you got to sign up and do all this stuff. And it's not supposed to be like a strictly competitive event. It was supposed to be like a semi-competitive event, more of like a store showdown type level where everyone just gets together. There's obviously something for someone to pick up at the end, and we're all just supposed to gather and have a good time, hopefully on a scale that has never been seen before in the Star Wars Unlimited community. That was the goal. And so many of you were excited about it. So many of you. And so I felt it sort of prudent of me to go ahead and kind of explain a little bit of behind the scenes for those of you that were excited and like, wait, why are we changing now? Didn't we kind of, I guess, plan for this a little bit? Or didn't we go ahead and, or why do we have to stop it in the first place? And that's where we lead to kind of one of my initial conversations, or not initial, but one of my conversations a couple months ago with the lead team leader or lead developer. Not sure what the official title is. I don't think they have official titles over there, but one of the lead members of the Karabast team. And we had a pretty lengthy conversation before I started posting this video or recording this video, because I wanted to be on the same page. I didn't want to cause any trouble, and it seems like I had. So I just didn't want to do that anymore, right? The whole point of this was to have a good community time, and if part of the community is stressed out because of this, well, that defeats the purpose, right? Like, we're just trying to have a fun time. And so this is part of the reason why I had initially thought it was okay, because I didn't think it was going to kind of be on the same scale as what Pixelborn had, and we weren't going to push it that way. I just wanted to host kind of a online tournament just through kind of myself, handle everything on my end, not schedule it with any tournament sites or anything like that, and just run everything on my own, in my own personal kind of, enjoyment factor, but at a larger scale, right? And I did mention this kind of explicitly in a post or in a couple of messages about 3 months back. And I did get permission from the developer here to go ahead and include his side of the messaging, because I didn't want to, again, put him in a position where, there was something that he didn't want to show or anything like that. But he's pretty transparent. He's pretty reasonable as well. And we're on the same page. So this is what kind of went down about 3 months ago. No beef, no drama or anything like that. Just a miscommunication is really what it comes down to. As I said, if you watched my previous videos, I was looking to set up a tournament back in December. This was when set 3 was kind of pushed out, and in a little bit before that, brand new, and they were trying to get all the set 3 cards on there. So I was asking whether or not set 3 was going to be up and running, like when the new servers would be online, when the cards would be ready, etc., etc. I was trying to set up an online community tournament. He mentions, hey, it's going to be a little bit tight for running an event. I'm really pushing to get it live in December, and, talks about a lot of the mechanics and whether or not there's going to be time to go to get all those cards working. And I was like, okay, no problem. That's the kind of thought process I had. And then I went on to say, I'm imagining that if we had most of the mechanics functioning, that would be okay. Okay, I don't really care about, is this specific mechanic 1 in 100 games working? That's okay. We can work through that. If I did it, though, I didn't want to do it on TTS, so Tabletop Simulator, because 1/100th of the people that could participate. And I think that's still the case. Tabletop Simulator is a paid program. It is another third-party thing that, well, I don't think FFG likes very much either. But it's something that not everyone has, requires a PC, and is a little bit harder to get into. So I didn't want to do it on that. I wanted to do it on something that more people could participate. Whether that was, a huge gathering in person or, webcams online, I didn't really care. I just wanted to do something that could include as many people as possible. And, well, that's where we ended up here. Because I mentioned it would be a reasonably competitive tournament, but we're talking an online... I think I mistyped here, but that's what happens when you're just typing out conversations, huh? But we're talking online, getting the whole community in a multi-100 player tournament. There's bound to be a few bugs, mishaps. At the time, I wasn't sure how many people we could get. I mentioned this in my video. I was like, okay, I think we can get 1 to 200 at the minimum. We already have 300 signups. Turns out that a multi-100 player tournament is absolutely a possibility. And as I mentioned in that video yesterday, it would have been a reasonably competitive tournament. Not something that's like, okay, you're going to win invites to your sector qualifiers and go to the Galactic Championships and make sure you got, judges in every station and we have set rules and, there's no cheating and everything. Like that wasn't really going to be even at the same level as like a store showdown, really. Because store showdowns in person, they're much easier to manage. I was just relying on a bunch of people playing games. That was kind of my thought process. Everyone's playing games, but they're all playing them at the same time. And they're all ending up into the next round so they can keep playing games, right? Obviously in a tournament style, because that's the easiest way to go ahead and kind of get everyone on the same page. That was my goal. And I explicitly said that, right? Like that was my thought process. And I thought we were on the same page. Because a lot of these messages, including the last one here, talks a little bit about the, again, setting up the servers to make sure that the cards are working, right? As he says, yeah, it's just hard to know right now. Most of the stuff that's left, we have an idea on how it should work, but very well could be something that's more complicated than we realized. And that's mostly UI and server stuff, not necessarily the actual game engine itself. And so I thought we were kind of on the same page because, they were working to get the server set up and I was talking about, hey, I wanted to host this tournament. And they were like, yeah, just not right now because we're working on getting the server set up. Like that was kind of my thought. And that miscommunication kind of leads us to today where, some people are saying, wait, how could you even say that? Because you didn't even really say anything. And well, at least from my perspective, I felt like I had. Because it wasn't meant to be like, hey, I'm going to start this sign up. It's going to be, this day, and we're going to have this many people sign up. And like those things weren't really flushed out at that time, right? It wasn't really something that that was really flushed out yet. Like I have still not flushed it out. If you watched my video yesterday, it was like, hey guys, I want to host an online tournament because I think it'd be kind of fun. I don't know if we're going to keep it at 500 people. That's kind of my thought process right now. I don't know if we're going to do 9 rounds or not. I don't know if we're going to submit deck lists a day before or a week before. Like I didn't really have a structure in place. And that's just kind of how, a lot of these random community gatherings, at least from my interaction with them, have kind of worked because it was just, I wanted to do something. I saw the community wanted to do something. I tried to combine those two and I thought everyone was on the same page. And clearly I was mistaken. And I apologize for that because I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes. And as I've mentioned so many times in so many of my videos, guys, I play Karabast every single day. Every single day. Not only that, but I also am one of the only content creators that actually posts about Karabast. And part of that is because I'm not a sanctioned FFG content creator, because I am able to say, do, and whatever I want kind of in my videos. And although I can, I still don't want to step on the people who I respect and the people who absolutely get affected by this is toes. Like, I don't want to step on their toes. And so if the community, if Karabast, if anyone else is worried about some of their beloved programs, then I'm going to back out. And that's pretty much what it comes down to, right? I don't want to get anyone in trouble. And again, I didn't think that we could get in trouble, but it doesn't matter what I think, because at the end of the day, it's more important to make sure everyone's in a good place, because the whole goal of this was to have fun. And Karabast are the heroes of the Star Wars Unlimited community. Regardless of, whatever I think, whatever anyone else thinks, and I do think very highly about Karabast, as you have seen many times in my videos, because it is the most convenient, easiest way to load up a Star Wars Limited game right at your home, completely free, and just test out a deck. Just person to person, right? That's it. Straight up. Simple as that. You can't do that anywhere else. Sorry. And that makes Karabast a precious commodity to myself. I don't even say commodity, a precious program to myself and to a lot of other people. And I don't want to infringe upon that in any way whatsoever. And so that's kind of where we end up today. But at the end of the day, why are people worried about this? Like, I know I've spoken about, okay, we're on the same page. There's a good community support for it, but there are a few people that, are worried about it. Why? Well, that comes really from Pixelborn and previous sort of iterations in previous trading card games of the third-party programs getting shut down. And that's where we lead into Pixelborn. So for those of you unaware or hadn't watched my videos about 10 months ago, Pixelborn got shut down around that time, and they received this message. I was advised Disney has intellectual property rights in the Disney electronic cards, and that Disney has requested Pixelborn to respect these rights by not copying the cards or in any way suggesting an affiliation with Disney. This last part is particularly important. I've always stated that I would respect such a request, and I plan to keep my word, and I will not grasp at technicalities. And to be honest, this sentiment that this person has is exactly where I'm right now. I have been pretty consistent in saying, hey, if there's a big feedback or a big kind of mention that this isn't a good idea or that I should do this instead, or if one of the developers or anything kind of reaches out to me and shares their thoughts, I would 100% respect and understand why. And there is a good portion of the community, Karabast, as well as, I completely agree with reasons to why not to host a tournament. So I am 100% with them. I'm not planning on trying to say like, oh, well, you've got Karabast, but I'm not an FFG content creator, so I'm just going to keep running the tournament. Like, I technically could do that, but that doesn't work. Like, for what my goal is. My goal is to run a community tournament and get people involved. I don't want to shun community or go completely against what potentially the community wants in the interest of one portion of the community over the other. That doesn't really make a lot of sense if the goal is for everyone to have a good time, right? And I know a lot of you don't even know that this is going on. There's only a small portion of you that knows this is going on. But regardless, that's why we're here telling about everyone what's going on so that everyone is kind of on the same page, because at the end of the day, that's the goal. Everyone's on the same page, and we're all here trying to make Star Wars Unlimited as a community better, whether that's through Karabast or just playing the game in person, right? That's our goal. Now, with Pixelborn, the reason why it got to this level was way above kind of what Karabast is at right now. Right now, there's no public-facing tournaments, there's no collection of funds or anything like that. And even with the introduction of potentially my tournament, it still wouldn't have been at that level. And there's a few examples of this. This is just one example of one of the Pixelborn tournaments that went off. And this is number 1. I believe this went up to like number 10 or number 11. This was a very consistently hosted tournament. Basically, a lot of people were running their store showdowns, their regular weekly events through Pixelborn because it was just so convenient. This was actually advertised as the kind of client that people were running on. Like the tournament was actively just posted and advertised, not just like in a video or in a post or in a Discord or anything like that. These were like TCG tournament hosting sites that were actively hosting these tournaments through Pixelborn or with Pixelborn. So this is just one step that kind of got Pixelborn in trouble, right? Not necessarily too crazy, right? Obviously, something that could reasonably happen with Karabast at some point if people are really pushing to use it as a tournament site. But that's, again, not just one, not just two, not just three. It was a consistent thing with Pixelborn. It's just another example ran through Limitless TCG. And again, these could have varying levels of prizes. They could have, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in prizes with entry fees and like a whole normal tournament, or it could be completely free with a good amount of prizes and things like that associated with it as well. It went from one level to the other. But that's not all. As you can see here, if you just look, this is one of the videos that I pulled up a while ago, actually, when I was doing a little bit of research, just kind of curious as to what Pixelborn was and kind of the problems associated with it, or the problems that it might have caused at the time of it getting taken down. You can just see here, 1, 2, 3, 4 tournaments on Pixelborn. This is just like a kind of catalog of the results index of various tournaments, kind of like how SWUDB tournament results works. But you can see 4 tournaments on one weekend. That was literally about a year from today. And they were still hosting tournaments of multi-hundred player sizes on Pixelborn, right? So this was a very common occurrence. It was rampant. It wasn't just like a one-of thing. It wasn't just like, okay, we're hosting one tournament. But here's the thing. You don't want to reach this point, which is where the criticism comes from. If we start hosting a tournament, like from myself, for example, where does it end? Are people going to host smaller tournaments consistently? Or am I going to host another tournament in the future, right? Is this going to be a regular occurrence to where we do cause problems, right? Because this could all happen. This could all happen, right? And that is one of the things that people are concerned about. And I want to alleviate that concern by not putting us in that position at all. But then it goes even a step further. And actually, a couple of these events had like Disney affiliated art logo, that type of stuff, with their tournament advertisement. And that's where it starts to become a big problem, right? One of the big things is we do not want to suggest any sort of official affiliation with the intellectual property rights holder, period. And that is something that, well, Karabast and myself have been very careful about. Like we aren't hosting official things. This is a community-based fan site that is just there to have some good times. My tournament was just intended to be a big community gathering on that fan site, right? Or on something else in the future, like maybe webcam games or something like that, right? That was the goal. But if you start affiliating with Disney, suddenly there's a big problem. And again, not saying that I or Karabast would ever do that or anything like that, but there may come a point where the tournaments are so frequent and things like that, that may start happening. And that's something that could very well and most likely will cause problems in the future. And so we don't want to reach that point at all. We don't want to reach that point at all. So here's the results of all this. What I told the developer of Karabast is I'm going to take down the video because, obviously if I'm not hosting a tournament, there's no reason to have that video up. I'm going to post this video because I want to let people know, hey, what's going on? Like I thought I was getting this tournament, but now I'm not. It's literally a day after. I wanted to make sure people were informed as fast as possible. And I wanted to not extinguish hope is one of the bigger things as well. And I think this is one of the biggest things for me because I really was having a hard time trying to figure out how to go about this video, because it's not like it's FFG's fault. It's not Karabast's fault. It's not, anyone's fault, really. It's just the state of online Star Wars Unlimited. We don't have an officially licensed, officially sanctioned program like Magic Arena, for example. And so right now, at least, trying to lay low makes a lot of sense. Even if the community wants to do it, if I want to do it, and not saying that Karabast wants to do it, but let's say they did in theory, then it's most likely still not going to happen because we don't want to encroach on the intellectual property rights of Disney. And in this case, based on the feedback, people are worried that's going to happen. And I don't want to set up a situation where maybe I'm enabling something which I should have thought about in my initial kind of thought process, even outside of us being on the same page for Karabast, like when my initial messages went through. I don't want to cause any problems. And I don't want them to suffer any problems. There is no really blame to be handed out in terms of not being able to do this. I guess the blame would be associated with just not having a licensed client, period. Right? If we had one, we could do it. If we don't, we can't. Or at least, I mean, we could, but we don't want to because we don't want to make it so that Disney's threatened at all. Or FFG or whoever would be looking at this and making a decision about it, right? And so that's where we're at. But I don't want to extinguish all hope because I think that the community is really hoping for something like this. And just seeing the amount of people that came out and provided feedback on it, whether it was positive or negative or insulting or extremely complimentary, doesn't matter. There was just a whole ton of community engagement. And therefore, this is absolutely something that might want to be considered in the future. Not with Karabast or anything like that, but maybe we could figure out something in the future that doesn't encroach on the intellectual property rights at all in any way whatsoever with Disney. And again, this is something that is a pretty standard practice, but at the end of the day, we don't want to get anyone in trouble. That's pretty much where it ends at, right? So I apologize for setting us up for something that I thought was going to be pretty exciting and that we probably could have done, but at second glance, not everyone was on board with it, and therefore we're not going to do it. It's pretty straightforward. To be honest. But as I said, I always shoot you all straight in terms of kind of my reasoning behind it, my thoughts behind it. And at the end of the day, everything that goes into my decisions, my videos is all about having fun for myself and for the community. So hopefully, at some point, we're going to be able to do something really cool like this. I can't make any promises, of course. I didn't even set out like a specific structure in my previous video because I wasn't really sure about everything yet. But that's where I guess it ends, and we'll figure out what to do in the future. Again, I want to say a big thank you to the entire community and a big thank you to Karabast in general for just being something that has been really cool for individual people to go and test their decks, right? And at the end of the day, we're going to respect whatever wishes that everyone has in the matter as a group together, because it doesn't make any sense to try to host something community oriented with half the community differing from the other half. Let's be on the same page, yeah? And that's what this video is all about, is just getting everyone on the same page. So hopefully that explains a few things. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, maybe just in terms of like a morbid curiosity type of note. I'm going to have a video tomorrow because that's what happens. I post a video because I enjoy playing Star Wars Unlimited. And guess what? It'll probably be on Karabast because I play a lot of Karabast. It is what it is. Thank you to the developers over at Karabast for reaching out to me and vice versa, for being able to, go ahead and work with me on this and be able to go ahead and have a conversation about this, because that's one of the biggest things is we just don't want to have any miscommunication in the future. And so now we're all on the same page. So none of this was going to happen. ideally at any point. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow with a little bit of Karabast gameplay. See you then.